So we bought our farm about 7 years ago with no intentions of weddings whatsoever. We bought it as a family home and to do rescue animals. And we kept it as a surprise. We didn't want to tell anybody because it was for sale by owner. And we bought it, we signed it, we put it on Facebook that night. Surprise, we bought a hobby farm and immediately started getting messages.
You're listening to the Venue RX podcast.
What's up, everyone? Jonathan here with the Venue RX. And on this podcast, we are passionate about documenting and sharing best practices around owning, operating, and managing world-class wedding venues. And we do a number of different styles of shows on this channel. We talk to wedding industry pros on a variety of different topics. And we've done something recently that has been by far my favorite part of the show. It's called the Real Wedding Venue Owner Series. And on this series, we talk to wedding venue owners who are owning and operating their properties. And we really get into the nitty-gritty with them about everything that it takes to run their property, the wins they've had, sometimes the failures, the oopsies, the things that they've learned. And we just break it all down for you. So I'm really excited today to have Jamie Wright from the Farm on Cotton. Thank you so much for being here today, Jamie.
Thanks for having me, Jonathan. I'm super excited.
Well, I'm really excited to chat with you as well. Had a chance to check out your website and just I'm really excited to learn a bit more about you. Your property is located in North Carolina, you were saying, correct?
Yes. So we're 30 minutes south of Raleigh, so right next to a big city, but still in the country.
Okay, amazing. How did you end up in Raleigh, like right outside of Raleigh?
So I grew up here in Lee County, and my husband is from our neighboring county, Chatham. And so we're right here in our hometown.
That's so cool. That's awesome. Give me a little bit of a background on you and how you got into the wedding and events industry, and then we'll kind of move to talking about your venue and how that got started.
So we bought our farm about 7 years ago with no intentions of weddings whatsoever. We bought it as a family home and to do rescue animals. And we kept it as a surprise. We didn't want to tell anybody because it was for sale by owner. And sometimes those things, don't pan out. And so we bought it, we signed it, we put it on Facebook that night. Surprise, we bought a hobby farm and immediately started getting messages. I need a place to take bridal portraits. I don't have anywhere to have a bridal shower. Your place is beautiful. What do you think about us doing it out there? So it started with bridal portraits, morphed into showers, and all of a sudden just a couple tiny weddings happened, and I was hooked. I loved it.
Were you an entrepreneur at all before that, or was this kind of your first foray into this?
No, I was a paralegal, and then I stayed home with my kids for about 5 or 6 years. And that's when we decided, the kids were young, and I was like, let's move out. Let's, get away from, being right on, a county road where there was a lot of traffic. And so we ended up coming out here on a whim. My husband was like, we are not buying this place. And we drove in the driveway. We both looked at each other. We're like, oh, we're buying this place. It was just meant to be.
That's so cool. As you have, at what point, actually, before I ask this question, at what point was this? How far back is this when you bought it?
2016.
Okay. So from 2016, how long did it take you to realize, gosh, we got to do weddings here. This is really cool. And for you to kind of get hooked, as you said?
It took me about 6 to 8 months to finally give into it, because that's not what I intended for the property. And once people started coming out here, and I'm a very social person, I found out how much I loved it. In fact, our handyman was the one, he was our first wedding. And they called us from the courthouse, and they were like, we just got married, can we grab a cake, come out and cut it? And I was like, absolutely. Okay, I've got 45 minutes. How do I put this together? And I'm pulling out grandma's china and tablecloths. And by the time they got here, we had a little reception set up by the pool. And I was hooked. I was like, this is it. And I'm so glad we did, because at the time, we didn't realize how expensive it is to run a farm and to have rescue animals. So this says, basically, weddings run the farm. It supplements it, and it's worked out.
What was the connection with the animals? Because it's so cool. Like you said, the rescue animals, and it's woven into your website, your branding, and what you do. What kind of sparked your passion around that?
So always been a big animal person. And at our last home, we lived right across from a small hobby that had cows and donkeys. And I would sit out on our front porch and look over and I'd watch every day. And it was just such a calming effect. I loved being around them. And so when we came out here, there were already two goats on the property that the owners didn't want to move and take with them. They're at retirement age. And so we started there. And within a week or two of posting about those goats, we had people calling and they're like, hey, our neighbor's got a goat they need to get rid of, or a donkey, or a pig, And so it just evolved very quickly. And now we have 3 donkeys, 5 goats, 2 pigs.
That's awesome. And how do you weave them into the wedding experience for people?
They weave themselves into it. They are a very active part of weddings, to the point where sometimes we've had, like, when the minister says, does anyone object? And all the donkeys just let out braying. Or when a goat escapes and, we turn around and, getting ready to cut the cake, and here comes my goat Willis just walking into the barn, and I'm like, no. So they pretty much interject themselves. They are about maybe 30 foot away from the, and so people can go right up to the fence and view them and interact with them and see them. And everyone loves it, from kids all the way up to grandparents' age. They love the animals.
That's so cool, because you're building in an experience, and not only are people going to a wedding, but there's an opportunity for the kids and the family to interact with the animals. I love that. Let's talk about the business, the venue side of things. So you said when you originally bought the venue, you didn't necessarily have a plan for it being a venue. It was a hobby farm. Did you need to put in infrastructure and do any building or anything at the point that you really made that intentional pivot towards starting to do weddings?
So what we did was, first of all, we went to the county because we wanted to go and be above and beyond. Sure, the permitting was in place. And then we started by pouring a 40 by 80 concrete slab. And my husband said, we'll try it. We'll put a tent up. If you love it, then we can look into building. And within a year, we realized this is it. We absolutely love this. And so we started looking at plans to build. Well, COVID happened, and we knew we were going to be shut down for a while. And it was now or never. I was like, let's do it. Let's go ahead. Let's build a farm. Everything shut down. We don't have any wedding. And of course, everybody thought we were crazy. They're like, the economy's going down, COVID's going on, and now you guys are going to build. But literally, I remember making the social media post. I was like, we're stepping out in faith, and this is a God thing. And it was just.
Were there any surprises for you in the process of building that? Because at that point, you had the slab, right? And you were using a tent?
We had the slab. We had a square tent. It was 40 by 40. So it was, pretty much very small weddings that we were doing at the time. And so the tent up, barn, this came in pieces, and we had no experience whatsoever with construction. We have never built a house. We've never built even a shed. I mean, we had no experience. So we had a great company that came out, and yet there were surprises along the way. I mean, as far as like putting the post down into the concrete and all the mess. I remember pressure washing the concrete slabs so it would be perfect, not knowing that there was going to be just mud and clay everywhere. There were surprises of like weather delays, and I mean, just trying to get everything done by that first wedding, because we opened up in July of 2020 after COVID. I mean, I just remember like the night before, like blowing all the sawdust out and making sure that everything was hung, and we were right up until the very last hour.
Wow. During that time, did you have a hard time finding supplies? Or I know there's a lot of, depending on where you were at in the country, there were supply chain management issues. There may be issues with people wanting to work or not. Did you experience any of that as you were maybe even working with this company?
No, absolutely not. They were fantastic. They sent a crew of guys out. They were here every single day. Even bad weather, they would find other things to do inside. Everything came on a truck. So every piece of equipment, every piece of lumber, even down to the box nails were included. So there was no problem getting anything. And it was actually something for us to do while we were stuck at home. We would walk out. We got to be really good friends with the crew, buy them lunch, make sure that they had drinks and different things. But we would sit, we wouldn't bother, but we would sit away in our chairs and just watch this barn being constructed in our backyard.
Wow. That's pretty inspiring that you kind of made that choice, like you said, to step out and do this thing, which had to have felt like a risk during this time when everything's getting shut down. What was your thought on that? Like, did you think that maybe COVID was going to last longer, shorter? Like, where was your feeling around how that could go, and what gave you the courage to really push forward?
Oh, it was a God thing all the way. I mean, it's something that I had prayed about, something that I felt very strongly had to do. And so I'm the kind of person of like, I'm ready to step out the door, I'm ready to do this. My husband's the more cautious one. But even he was on for everything. And some of our family members, even our friends afterwards, they were like, we thought you were crazy. I told him, I was like, no, we got to do this. We got to have faith that everything's going to work out. We didn't think that the COVID thing would last as long as it did. We opened in phases of, you can have 25 people, and then they would move it up to 50, and eventually it got to 100. And so by July, I think we were at 50 and we were having small weddings by August, and then we opened up.
Previously, before that, what is the most amount of weddings that you had done in a year on your property?
Oh, maybe 10 or 12.
Okay. So you would do the 10 or 12 weddings post COVID and post adding this new facility. What's the most amount of weddings that you've done?
Most in a year, 35.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
How did that feel? 35 weddings. Was that a lot? Do you want to do more than that? Do you want to do less than that? Like, how many weddings are you considering doing for the future?
So our goal for next year is 40 weddings. We've started to bring in more staff, more of our wedding fairies is what I would call all the girls. My kids are now teenagers and they want to help and make money. And so we feel like we've got the resources now to step out and do a little bit more, but we're still cautious of want to have family time, time for rest, time to go on vacations, so that we don't, reach burnout.
Yeah, I actually wanted to ask about that, Jamie, because I know I've talked to other venue owners who live on property before, and that's even some of the things that they've said they don't like about having a venue on their property, because you've got, it's a private event, but still some of the public coming on your personal space. Have you found that is challenging to navigate when you actually live on the property and have your venue there?
I think sometimes you take things a little more personally. For instance, somebody throws a cigarette down on the ground and you're like, oh my gosh, this is my home. You're littering on my home. It's not a home to them, it's a business to them. So I find like I try to pinch myself and say, don't take it so personally. But it can be. It also makes things easier because I can pop right back in the house and see my kids and answer home questions and make sure that everybody's got something to eat that night. So for me, it just makes things a lot easier than having to leave my home for basically anywhere from 12 to 18 hours a day.
Yeah, that's so true. I've experienced different things when I talk to people about this question, and also just working. I mean, my wife and I, we run our business together, and we've got 5 kids, and she loves working from home. She doesn't take many calls, but she's doing a lot of emailing, a lot of texting, and she can do that. For me, I really need to kind of separate those two, because if I have other things going on and then I'm trying to focus on work, that's stressful. So then, we got an office, and as our company's grown, that's made more and more sense. But I find people are either on one side of the aisle or another. Like, they can do the multitasking, or maybe not.
Yeah, it's not unusual for me to be in our home office texting the client or emailing, and my kids right behind me asking me math problems or telling me about way they're going to be doing in theater this year. And my husband, on the other hand, a completely separate job. But we have a spare apartment on the property, and he has to have his own space. It has to be completely quiet. He has to, you can't go around, knock on the door 50 times a day kind of thing. So I do bother him occasionally, help with tables, but yeah, he definitely has to have his own space.
That's awesome. What does he do?
He is an innovations director for an engineering company.
That's awesome. Very cool. Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that. I'm interested. I want to shift a little bit and start talking about kind of the business side of what you do. Are you guys using a CRM system as you are booking people?
Absolutely. We use HoneyBook.
Okay.
It has been such a game changer for us. And when we started out, we were printing contracts, either mailing them out, or people were having to come back to the venue to sign. And when finally I was like, I had tried HoneyBook years ago and didn't really, jive. And then they did a lot of updates, and I was like, let's give it another whirl. I mean, it was like a special. It was like, I think, $1 special for like 6 months. And we tried that, and I was like, wow, these people have got a great system going on. I can send out contracts, I can send out invoices, I can, talk with my brides, and everything is in one email. I can, see everything. I can look back and say, okay, well, they wanted this centerpiece, or, they've got this DJ coming, and I don't have to go through a regular email system looking for emails and trying to decipher things. So HoneyBook is just the godsend for us.
That's so cool. Yeah, it's been a huge help for us as well. And I know there's a lot of other options out there, but price for what you're getting, I mean, it's pretty good.
Yeah, we tried some other ones. We were paying I think $99 a month. And when I went back to HoneyBook, I was sold pretty quickly.
That's awesome. Tell me a little bit about what you're doing for marketing. How are you getting word out about your venue?
So social media is Facebook and Instagram. I am looking into TikTok, a little bit nervous because, it's something new that I'm going to have to learn. Google ads. We don't do any of the big companies like WeddingWire. We have a free app with them, but not the paid subscription. We tried that for a while, but it was really, really expensive. We ended up trying Google ads, and that really has been the best thing. Occasionally during the busy season, we'll do some Facebook ads.
For WeddingWire and The Knot and kind of those platforms, those directories, do you feel like during the time that you tried them that you were getting enough leads from them, enough qualified leads, or not really? I mean, I know there's this big kind of debate in the industry whether it's profitable to use those or not. What's your take on it?
We got a fair amount of weddings, but in the last couple of years, it just all the leads weren't panning out. We would respond and then not get responses back. And I just we looked at the number in the last 2 years. It just wasn't sustainable for us, not at that price point, because I think we were, for a venue, we were $600 to $700 a month on wedding. And that's a huge chunk of money. So we ended up kind of pivoting over to Google ads and doing really well with that.
Do you tell me a little bit about the area that the venue is located in? Do you have a lot of competition nearby? Are there similar venues, or what does the local competition for you look like?
Our closest venue is about 2 miles down the road from us, which is funny sometimes on wedding day, because occasionally people will come to the wrong venue. They'll see a sign that says weddings, and all of a sudden the bride walks down the aisle and they're like, this is not the right way. It only happens every once in a blue moon. Kind of funny. But we have probably 8 venues in our county, and they are anywhere from a historic home to the big white barn. We even have some different ballrooms, country clubs, but we get along well with everybody. Everybody goes to each other for information and help, to ask questions. So it is competition, but it's a good thing too. We all have the mindset community over competition. In fact, about a year and a half ago, I actually started Central Carolina Weddings, and that it was just for an association that everybody can come together and share ideas and have meetings where we have attorneys and accountants and different people to come speak so that other people are educated. Because I know when I started, I mean, I was worried. I was like, I don't know if I want to go to an attorney. It might be $10,000 to have a contract made. I had no idea. Now I can share with other people that is like, no, you can go and have somebody do it for a reasonable price. You know, you don't have to be scared of numbers. Here's an account that you can go to. So that kind of thing.
That's huge. That's such an amazing resource for people. I've actually been really surprised at the lack of education. I know we were talking about this a little before we got on, but I mean, it's so amazing. Our industry is such a large industry. It's, you know, multi-billion-dollar industry across the United States, but you know, we don't have a lot of that, you know, and so kudos to you for starting that and kind of helping support your local community. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Help me understand a little bit about the operations and, you know, the packaging. When someone gets married at the farm on Cotton, what are they getting in terms of, you know, are they getting tables and chairs? How many hours of access are they getting? Kind of give me some of those specifics.
So we're priced daily. So we have Saturday packages and Sunday packages. They both include the same amount of hours. We start at 8 o'clock in the morning, and the last song is played at 10 o'clock in the evening. And then from 10 to 11, we clean up. We try to do as much as possible. So we have wood farm tables. We have all the chairs. I have an entire garage of decorations that they can pick from, centerpieces, greenery, candles, everything you can think of is in there. We set it all up. We tear it all down. I am the day of coordinator, so I create the timeline, and we execute that. We have someone that comes in and drops the golf around the farm. So if grandma or grandpa, or you know, anybody that might have any type of mobility issues, you know, they want to go around and see the farm, or anyone that's just in high heels. We have a lady that comes in, she's a school bus driver, and she drives her golf cart. And then we have all the wedding fairies that are sprinkling their magic over, you know, running to get bouquets, or you know, my high heel, you know, I get, you know, got broke, whatever the crisis may be. We're there to step in and make the day magic and not feel any stress whatsoever.
Tell me, you mentioned the wedding fairies, and obviously, you know, you're wearing a shirt there that says Wedding Fairy. Tell me a little bit about that. Where did that come from, and what was the inspiration behind that?
Inspiration was my love for Disney and Disney World, which I found about 9 years ago. My sister drug us to Disney World, didn't want to go, didn't know what to expect, and I deal with a lot of motion sickness. So I was like, oh, I won't be able to ride anything, I won't be able to do anything. Very quickly fell in love with it, but really fell in love with their customer service. It wowed me and impressed me. And what I realized was going there was not just buying a ticket to a theme park, it was an experience. And, you know, every single cast member consistently was providing that experience. And that's what I want for my ladies and gentlemen that work out here, is that, you know, we're not just here, you know, for one day, you know, take the trash out, clean up. We're here to love on these people and to provide them with that family experience.
Got it.
And so here's just a little nod to
that. I love that. And I noticed on your website, you have, you know, all of your team members called out like that, you know, each one of them. That's so neat. And you're right. It does provide a different level of experience, the different layer of customer service, and it really matches with what you have going on with the animals. You know, it's not just a come in, get married, you know, leave. Are there spaces to both do ceremony and reception on the property?
Yes. So we have the barn that is mainly for the receptions. Of course, if there's inclement weather, we can always have the ceremony inside the barn. Our most popular ceremony location is outside of the barn, and there's an overlook that is made that overlooks our apple orchard. So we have about 150 apple trees that goes into a valley, and so it's a beautiful ceremony spot. A lot of people use. We have like a frigged cross. We have a wooden arbor that they can choose from. We have flowers that go with that, and so that's one spot. And then we actually have a gazebo in the front of the property. And so if they want, more of like, let's go have the ceremony in a different location, then we have everybody come to the front of the property. There's a beautiful stone walkway that leads up to the gazebo, and it's a garden type area. It's a rose garden. So those two areas are most popular.
Wow. So it sounds like you have a couple of different spaces that you can do ceremony to give them different looks.
Yes.
I'm curious about, you mentioned rentals. You try to do as much as possible in the way of decorations. Sounds like you've got a couple of options for archways and things like that. How do you handle if someone breaks stuff like that? Do you have damage deposits? How do you handle some of that kind of?
No, because mostly everything that we provide is donated by other products. So people have left wood slabs and plates and cylinders and vases, and everything comes from another bride. And at the end of the night, they're just like, wow, what am I going to do with 150 candles? Well, here you go, Miss Jamie, you keep the next person. So 95% of things are donations. And I just tell the brides, I'm like, look, if something gets broke, tell us up front so that we can replace it by the time the next bride gets here, just in case she's depending on it. So I've never had to do a damage deposit. Very rarely have had anyone do, be disrespectful of the property, like maybe 1% of the time. It's very, very rare.
That's awesome. That's really cool. And I love that you have used stuff that past brides have given you, because then it really takes the financial stress off of you for like, oh my gosh, we invested, $10,000 into whatever the thing is. You're doing good both ways. It's just stress off of you, and then also you're able to take that off their hands when they maybe don't want to take it home and store it in their garage or whatever.
Exactly. And it's there for the next bride, and we don't charge for that. It's completely free. Go into the closet, see what you like. There's a million signs, easels, and they're just ecstatic. They're like, thank you. I didn't want to have to go to Hobby Lobby and spend, $800 on things that they're never going to use again. They're just going to have it stored in their attic, or they're going to be the hassle of Facebook Marketplace and trying to sell it the next week. So, and a lot of times, at the end of the night, they're like, oh, we got to use all this stuff. By the way, let me donate something to the closet. They're excited to do that.
That's awesome. For anyone listening to this and they're thinking, I'd love to provide some things like that, are there some really frequently used items that you would recommend every venue have on hand?
Yes. Glass cylinders and floating candles. Almost every single wedding, we do floating candles. Silk greenery. I have a lot of brides that come in and they're like, you just pick, do your thing, decorate it, make it beautiful. And so a lot of times we have a lot of silk greenery on hand that we can add. Mini vases are really popular right now. Everybody loves the little mini vases that you can do a couple of blooms in, and it's just, a pop of color. I would definitely say signage, pick a seat, not a side kind of signs. The heaven memorial signs, things like that. I mean, the brides are never going to use it again. It's really inexpensive to pick up at your local craft stores, and it's just nice to provide.
Yeah, but the signs make so much sense, because you're totally right. Signage, the pick a seat, not a side, that one, or the cell phone, like unplugged ceremony signs, things like that. Absolutely. Absolutely. Talk to me a little bit about insurance. We got to cover all the stuff, even the boring stuff, right? Talk to me about insurance. Do you require people to provide day of insurance? What's your thought process around that?
So we have our regular business insurance, and then we do require a day of insurance. And there's a couple of different places online that's easy to go through. And then we have our own insurance agency in town because a lot of people in the county get married here and they're like, hey, we want to use someone local. So we give them that information as well. But I always let them know, let's say, for instance, it's a 5-minute process to get an insurance policy. And that is due to us about a week of the event. So that has to be in place. It used to be we would just do it if they were having alcohol. Now we require it for everyone.
Yeah. It's pretty inexpensive. I mean, it's like you said, it'll take 5 minutes and it's maybe 80 to $120. And,
Exactly.
the coverage it gives is huge.
Agreed. Yeah. And peace of mind, priceless.
Jamie, you said that you do the coordination piece of it. So you'll create that timeline. What about other vendor services? So things like DJ, catering, bar services, are those things that you're providing in-house, or do you outsource those to vendors?
We outsource all of that to vendors, and we have a pretty comprehensive list of people in our community and even surrounding counties that we give to our brides. And most of our brides come back and they're like, we went completely off your list. Here's everyone that we're using. And it's just kind of like a puzzle that we put together. And it's like, all right, you give me all your vendors, we give you a sample timeline, and then we just kind of put our heads together and, form that, put together the puzzle pieces. That's what I tell all my brides. I'm like, don't let any one piece stress you out because there's plenty of pieces to go around. And so we work together and we create that timeline. We make sure, that we contact all the vendors week of, that email on Monday morning that's going to come from me and they know it's coming. That, okay, Caitlin and Heath are getting married this Saturday and we're so excited to see you at 2 p.m. or 4 p.m., whatever, time that they're coming. It's also a great way to remind people, just recheck that calendar, make sure you're going to be here, because you never know when someone accidentally misses writing something down or booking that appointment in there. And, probably 3 times in the last 6-7 years, we've had somebody go, is that this Saturday? And I'm like, absolutely, it's this Saturday. So, we like to catch those mistakes before they even happen or the bride knows anything about them.
Is there any specific software that you use for the timelines, or you just create them with a spreadsheet, or how do you typically do that?
So I generally just use Microsoft Word. We've got a beautiful template I bought with Etsy. Very simplified, just time to cut the cake, what time all their dog dances, what time pictures. Just so that it's not too, because, it tends to be, your timeline is 3 or 4 pages long. The vendors, eventually, just get it's just confusing. I like to just make it simple. We're cutting the cake. We know what we've got to have for the cake. I know I've got to have a table. I know I've got to have, the cake pieces and the knives and servers. All of our fairies know that, and they're great about, if they see me headed towards the cake, they're right behind me. I've got the table. I've got the cut piece. I've got the plate and the napkin. And we seamlessly, to ensure that the bride just walks over and everything is set up and it's ready to go.
I have one last question about operations, and then we'll get to the final piece, which is what's your favorite part about owning your venue, what's your least favorite part. So we'll cover that in a second. But when you're thinking about growing your team and, maybe even get to that 40, 50, 60 wedding mark as you're kind of thinking about scaling up, how are you finding people? What's the process you're going through to recruit and hire people?
So a lot of times I will ask the girls and I'm like, who do you guys know that, would be a great fit? A lot of our girls are school teachers, bus drivers, and they're like, oh, absolutely, we know people. Here recently, we had one of our mother of the brides from 2 years ago reach out, and she said, hey, she's like, really had you on my heart. God put you on my heart. And I want to come work a couple of weddings this summer. And I'm like, well, that's fantastic because we've got 2 that aren't filled yet. And she took those spots, and she's a great gal, and we loved, connecting again. And so, it's really just word of mouth. We're a pretty, small community. It's not something that we really, would go out and advertise for. But we have people at weddings that are like, wow, this is my dream job. Could I ever come work a wedding? Well, yeah, you can. Come on. So, yeah, word of mouth.
That's a wonderful way to do it because most of the time the folks already love the property or they know someone who loves the property. And so there's some of that borrowed credibility, that you have that that you can use. So I love that. Well, Jamie, let's I'm curious, what is your favorite part? What's your least favorite part? And of course, we have to start with the least favorite part and then end on a high note. So what is your least favorite part of owning your venue?
Oh, least favorite part. I would say just having to handle everything. I do everything from mowing the grass to making the timelines to cleaning the bathroom, and combined with personal life, sometimes it can get hectic. Um, but I would say probably mowing the grass is my least favorite. We have 14 acres. It's all landscape property. And that's a big part of it. Everybody loves coming out here. They're just like, oh, wow, your front yard looks like a golf course kind of thing. And it's like, yeah, because I mow it with such care and it takes hours to do. So mowing would be my least favorite part. And favorite would be, it's got to be that hug at the end of the night, that hug from the bride, that hug from her mom. That is like, you made this day possible. You made everything so stress-free. You created my fairy tale. It's got to be the hug. I love the hug at the end of the night. I love them calling me a year or two later and telling me we bought a dog or we're expecting our first child. I love that they include me not only in that day, but in their journey. So that's my favorite.
That's so cool. That's so cool. I love that. Jamie, thanks for sharing your story with us, and your business and how you have created something really special for couples. It's exciting to see. We'll put links to everything in the show notes so people can go check out your website and what you're doing over there. But if they're listening right now and they want to check you out on Instagram or somewhere else, what's the best place for them to reach out?
Thefarmoncotton.com is our website. Same thing on Facebook, same thing on Instagram. Just reach out, send us a message, ask us questions. I love to help other people get started. I love to, give any advice that I can. So, yeah, anything on social media would be great.
Very cool. Well, thanks so much for being a part of this show. It really makes a big difference. And thanks for sharing your story.
Thanks, Jonathan.